Hello and welcome to another episode of My Backstage Pass. This is your host, Lee Zimmerman, and I'm here with my producer, co-host, and good buddy, Billy Hubbard. And today we're, oh my gosh, super excited to have the great John Langford as our guest. Welcome, John. It's such a pleasure to have you on our podcast.
Hello,
here.
It's great to be here backstage with you.
Well, please. I mean, I hope you got through security okay. They're pretty
I've
stringent.
got all access, mate. I can get anywhere.
Yeah, they're pretty stringent. So, John, you have, I don't know how else to put it, but you have a very, very rich and full, amazing career. And I think I have most of what you've put out over the years, but I got to tell you, sir, it's kind of hard to keep up. You're going with a lot of different projects, and gosh, you're either very prolific or very restless. So I don't know which it is.
I think it's a bit of both, but
Yeah.
I really enjoy collaborating with people.
Mm-hmm.
And quite early on in the sort of game, I realized that maybe this wasn't something that was going to be entirely lucrative, you know?
Yes.
But the music business is kind of geared more towards people who want to knuckle down and you know, hone their product. And I was more coming from the punk rock period. I was more interested in the way, you know, the whole business works and the way you could manipulate that and go against it or push the envelope in different directions. And musically, I never, you know, the Mekons particularly, we never really felt like we wanted to have a certain sound. We were always trying to, you know, the idea was that you always moved on and you always kept exploring and adventuring. And then it becomes an adventure. And then that might explain, you know, my dwindling bank account, but my vast output.
Well, you're not only an extremely prolific recording artist, but you're a visual artist as well. I think it might be appropriate to refer to you as a Renaissance man, John Langford, because
I was born in 1485. You know.
Well,
I've got a big long beard.
Yeah, well, you're doing remarkably well for your age.
Yeah.
And as long as you have the steady hands and you got the vocal ability, you'll just keep on keeping on, I suspect.
Well, the way I figure it is my favorite artist is Goya, the Spanish painter, and he didn't do his best work till well into his 70s. So I'm ahead of the game at this moment.
Oh, that's excellent.
I'm building up to the crest of the wave, and then, you know, that's the idea.
Great stuff, man. I was looking at some of your art. I love that. I love the Hank Williams piece you had, man. That was cool.
Yeah.
The one was shot through with arrows.
Yeah, it was. And I was curious. Do you do that on canvas, or do you have one of a kind? Do you have prints of that?
I've tried canvas, and I find it a bit. I don't know. It's not harsh enough. I like wood. I like old pieces of wood with good bits of grain in them.
I saw that. I was curious if that was real wood. That's what I was going to ask. If you painted that, or it's real wood.
And you don't have to frame them and stuff. I just paint the edges black, and they're just like freestanding objects. So
very cool.
And I would say very economical if you don't have to buy the frame. That's very considerate of you.
Well, one of the things I've tried to do is, first time I had an art show, I did I was in art school. We formed the Mekons. I went off for 15 years, 2 major record label deals, endless touring.
Yeah.
And ended up in Chicago, and with no job or way to make a living, and the band had kind of almost split up. And I fell back on painting, which was a weird thing because a guy offered me an exhibition. Tony Fitzpatrick, who does a lot of Steve Earle's covers, all of Steve Earle's covers, in fact, has had a gallery in Chicago, and he'd seen some of my illustrations or something I'd done for like a local weekly paper, and he invited me to have a show at his gallery. And I was completely overwhelmed by the idea of going back to art after 15 years of playing rock and roll music. but we sold a load of things, and they were all original paintings. And it turned a big cog over in my head that made me think, well, I can actually make a living doing art. I never thought that was even possible. But quite quickly, I realized you then become like a rich man's plaything. You have to wait for people with a lot of money to come along.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of people who like my work, who were musicians like me, and would say, I love your stuff, but I can't possibly afford it. And I thought, well, there's got to be a way around that. So I started actually, what I've been doing is making prints, like digital prints that then go through a process when they get put onto the wood manually and then varnished and painted on. So they're a lot cheaper, but they look very much like the original paintings, but they're affordable, so.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, a multifaceted artist here, and your legacy, beginning with the Mekons and proceeding through all these other bands you've had. In my mind, you at one point really were an instigator in this sort of alt country Americana crossover, as with the Waco Brothers and the Pine Valley Cosmonauts. You really seem to have a hand in what has now manifest as Americana. You were doing that quite early on there, so to speak. And I would imagine that had something to do with the fact that you were signed to Bloodshot Records, which was kind of that alt country, company to begin with. But
when the Mekons made an album in 1985 called Fear and Whiskey.
Yes, there you go.
In the States, and we set up our own label called Sin Recordings, which was a kind of parody of Sun Recordings, and that was the Mekons having been a year zero punk rock band, kind of opening our ears up and listening a little bit and wondering what we were going to do, having had some commercial success and some massive commercial failure. We were just wondering whether we still should exist or not. And one of the things that interested us was sort of classic honky-tonk music, and people like Hank Williams, Jimmy Rogers, Patsy Cline, Loretta Lynn, and to take that into punk rock was seen as fairly radical at the time. We did that for a few years. Then when I moved to Chicago in '92, people were kind of aware of that, and that was part of our legacy, although the Mekons had kind of evolved into something quite different by that point. But I met some musicians, a band called Wreck, that I produced. They got me to produce an album for them for Wax Trax Records. I did a bit of production over the years, and we both, me and Dean, from the lead singer in Wreck, worked out that we both loved that same kind of honky-tonk music, and we're both kind of bored with touring all the time. And wouldn't it be nice to have a little band that played in local bars for free beer, doing honky-tonk music? So I was like, I'd like to learn how to do that. That would be an interesting thing. And, because I don't think the Mekons ever really learned the craft of it. We were influenced by it. But there's something about that classic 50s, 60s honky-tonk thing where what interested me was that how someone like Merle Haggard or George Jones were like telling stories about the lives of the people who were listening to them. And it was very direct. It seemed like a very direct connection between audience and listener, and that, or a musician and the audience. And that was something we struggled with punk rock. We wanted to break down the barrier between the audience and the band. And country music seemed to do it effortlessly. Simple songs with simple messages about everyday life. I pursued that with the Waco Brothers, and Bloodshot found us, but we had no idea that there was a whole scene of that stuff going on around the country. Because I think in the 80s, country music, or Nashville country music, kind of abandoned what I loved about it, the songs, the cheating, drinking, killing songs. All went out the window, and country music, like the Grand Ole Opry, moved to a shopping mall, and country music moved to the suburbs and became this sort of patriotic soft rock, with
Yeah,
a
or
cowboy
frat
hat on
rock.
top.
Frat rock. A lot of it
Yeah,
sounds like
I
frat
mean,
rock.
I still can't listen to it. It's endless. It seems to be endless. Occasionally there are people
Yeah.
that I like that come out, and there's occasionally people who seem to be different or interesting, but in the end, it gets back to this kind of just this sort of swaggering, boring. What I like about Hank Williams and Merle Haggard is how kind of vulnerable they are,
Yeah.
and the emotion in it. It's so pure and so direct, and it's been replaced by a sort of
Well,
cynicism.
it's interesting that you say that because on your new album here, where it really starts is the name of the album. There are a couple of songs here that I was listening to that seem very vulnerable. Discarded being one. Old Lost Dog. Um, it's
I think Discarded is. I mean, that is when I wrote that. I was kind of like trying to unashamedly write a 3-chord song, but it was about being discarded in a relationship and being discarded in by like a corporate world. It was
yeah,
about that
yeah,
song. It was meant to be a kind of there was a double meaning to it, which
yes.
I thought was fun to play with. But I love that song. It's a great one to do live as well because it is just like a very simple strum. But when you put the Salvation Army Mellotron on it, and
Yeah, 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 yeah. There you go.
it's
There you
pretty
go.
cool.
But it does, I think, reflect a sentiment that a lot of people feel these days. What with technology and the quick shift in the way we do things and attitudes and approaches, yeah, you sometimes feel like you're left behind, like you're not really worth what you should be worth. And I think, when I heard that song, I thought, yeah, I kind of feel rejected sometimes. But
Well, we all do, but it's the story of my hometown on one level. It was like a boom town when I was growing up.
hmm
Thriving docks, coal mines up the valleys, and a massive steelworks.
yeah,
And the year I left, they shut the steelworks down. They closed it down to a third capacity, and all these people, like my friends' dads, all lost their jobs, and the town. Everyone goes, "Oh, the town's not like it used to be. The town's so scruffy now, and it's so,
mm,
oh, it's not." It's because it's poor. It's because they took the money away,
yeah.
and that's what happens when you take the money away. And it was a decision made far away in a corporate office to destroy, or a political office.
That's that is sadly not uncommon these days. But again, I think that song sort of sums things up. This is the first album with the Bright Shiners. Now, is this a new band that you're working with? Or are these players?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely a new project. It's not
Yeah.
really much a solo project as it is a band. And it came about, I was just, during the pandemic, we were experimenting with recording and writing remotely, sending things back and forwards. I met Alice Spencer in Austin, and she had a Mellotron, and I was really interested in the idea of the Mellotron. And John Szymanski had been working with me with the Four Lost Souls. I told him about it, and then we have another friend, Tamine, who plays violin with me in Austin. She's played with the Mekons, been playing with me for years.
hmm
We decided, this might be an interesting thing to try and do a single. I was kind of bored with really big projects because you can only do one every kind of year or so. And I was, as I said, I'm kind of prolific and kind of restless. I wanted to write a bunch of things. So I've been doing a series of singles for a label in Spain called Tiny Global Productions.
Yes, I
we did a
saw
series
that.
called
Yeah.
Lucky 7. We put out 9 7-inches, just limited edition, but just a way to kind of get ideas down with the possibility of making an album of it all, like a weird compilation album in the end. But we had 4 songs with the Bright Shiners, so we recorded all of them. And when John in Valencia heard it, he just said, "Well, why don't you make a whole album? And have you got the songs?" I said, "Yeah, I got tons more songs." And it was great to be sending little sketches away to Alice in Austin and have her send them back. And it was just a very interesting process. And somebody taking a sketch that I'd written and making it into a kind of song or soundscape that
Yeah.
would never have conceived of. And I thought, this is a real proper collaboration. This is beautiful. Yeah.
Wow, 7-inch. You don't see those much anymore. People
Well,
selling
yeah.
them. Did
Was
it
it a
have
physical 7-inch or was it a
45?
Oh, we
45?
didn't do a 7-inch in the end because we just
Oh,
said, let's do an album.
okay.
You got these
okay.
songs, you might as well do an album. So we
Right.
burrowed away and came up with the album. By the time we'd finished the album, it had really turned into a band because we found the way we liked playing best in the studio was absolutely live. So we'd gone full circle from being this remote operation into being something where we needed to play together.
That's cool.
And we just come off European tour, East Coast tour, and a West Coast tour, and
Wow.
I think we played about 30 gigs this year. It's great.
Wow. 30 gigs. So, and we're only midway through the year too.
Yeah, but I played a lot of gigs with other people, but this band has really been kind of developing, and it's really, really different now. And if you'd seen us last year, the way it's evolved, it's a very strong thing. I'm really happy with it.
So again, you seem to have had a very restless spirit throughout your career, and all of these different bands and projects and your solo work. How do you sort of decide, okay, I'm going to put this one aside and I'm going to move into new terrain at this point in time? I mean, I guess the overall question would be, what fires up your motivation, so to speak, here to move on and off and forward and everything else?
I think I'll get bored quickly, and as I said before, I think I've worked out that maybe this isn't like a job. Maybe this is a privileged, thing I can do. It's something that I want to do, and I don't need it to be controlled by commercial interests.
Right.
It doesn't have to be at this stage. So I can do whatever I want. And I don't know, sometimes the tap gets turned on and I start writing songs, or I meet people that I think are great players, or people that just have interesting ideas. And we start working together. It's fairly social, to be honest.
Sounds like the fun way.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun way.
The Mekons, unfortunately, are scattered across the world.
Yes.
We always say the biggest enemy is geography for the Mekons, so it's very hard for everyone to get together. So while we haven't been getting together, it's idle hands. I don't like not to be doing something. So it's been great, and I had to have a project like the Bright Shiners. I really wanted to do it properly as a, if it comes out as an album, let's go out and we will tour, even if we're playing just to small rooms. And it was amazing actually, because people were very patient. Because I was thinking, a guy who's been doing it as long as I have, people come and turn up to see your show, and I could be playing stuff from all through my career, and I'm really playing. I think I'm playing one song that wasn't from the last 5 years.
Really?
Or 2 songs that weren't from the last 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but again, John, you have this amazing legacy and this incredible history and reputation. So I think that people might be in awe in a way, and anxious to see.
I'd rather be me than, I'd like the money, but I'd rather be me than be like one of these bands that comes out and has to play their hits from the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or everyone goes to the bathroom,
Well, I mean, your music is such that I would think if you do play old songs and you play the new songs, they would mesh. They mesh perfectly because, you have such a rich, vivid imagination. You've been so prolific, and I think that people would expect that they would hear newer material as well as the older material, because you are always moving forward, if that makes any sense.
To be honest, it made me kind of really respect the people who turn up to see us play, And sometimes we'll play on the East Coast, say, and people will show up 3 nights in a row, and it's fantastic. And we're not throwing any kind of raw meat at them. It's just, it's like
no raw meat.
We're going to play the new album.
Yeah,
and hope you enjoy it. And a couple of singles that came out a few years ago, and it's great. People like it. I really love it.
I was looking at all your albums, man. You came out with more albums than bands than most people have albums. What I was trying to say.
You have how many albums do you have, John Langford? I could count them up, but I'm wondering if you know how many albums you've had.
I have no idea. I know the Wacos have probably got about 8. The Mekon's probably over 25, nearly 25, something like that.
I'm going to have to go home.
Depends. And there's various other things and lots of collaborations. But sometimes when you do, for me to do a Waco Brothers album, I'm only writing and singing on half the stuff. With the Mekons, we go to a place and we start from scratch and just write and make an album. So in a way, there's not a lot of preparation that goes into it. We just kind of trust our instincts.
But it sounds like you could transition back and forth if circumstances permitted. I mean, you mentioned with the Mekons, they're all over the place. But if there was an opportunity to get together with the Mekons, it sounds like you would be inclined to do it, or the Wacos. I mean, it sounds like you're very fluid in your efforts here.
Yeah, I mean, I've committed a lot of time to the Bright Chinas over the last couple of months, most of this year, in fact. But now we've got some Waco Brothers things coming on, and there will be some Bright China stuff that goes parallel to that.
Wow.
I don't know. It's kind of what I do. I'm too old now to think of anything else. So.
But do you still like the touring? I mean, you mentioned.
Yeah, I do actually. It's hard. Like, I understand that it's hard, and you have to kind of think about. A lot of the times, you're working in a bar, so
Yes, prone to the temptations of the liquid libations. Yeah,
exactly. You don't want to go off on a 7-week binge, but you have to put some other things into it. So hopefully we do that sometimes. I feel pretty healthy though, so I don't know.
Well, it seemed like you're doing just fine, Mr. Langford, just fine.
Yeah, I had a good friend from Nashville moved to Chicago. You just mentioned you're in Chicago. Greg Gehring.
I met Greg on Sunday.
Oh, you're serious?
Really?
Oh man,
small world.
He played at the Hideout, and I didn't know where it was, but I'd heard a tale that he had moved to town. He was playing a bar called the Montrose Saloon a lot.
Yeah, I was glad to
while I was out of town, and somebody said he was really good, and then. Tim and Katie, who run the Hideout in Chicago, brought him over. We were sitting outside at this event called Day in the Country, and I was chatting with him, and he said Lawrence Peters and some other guys had just put a band together for him, so he'd never met them, and I was watching this band, wondering who it was, and I thought it was really good.
Yeah,
and then I made the connection of who he is. So I think he's going to be doing a residency at the Hideout, which
cool
is great.
I'm glad to see he's doing
he seems to be. Yeah, he seems to be enjoying it, and people are really interested. Maybe that's that's nice to change of scene.
Yeah.
Well, you moved to Chicago. What'd you say, like 30 years ago or something like that?
Yeah.
So, what motivated you to make that move, and what is it about the Windy City that still excites you and it made it your permanent residence?
Well, Chicago has a habit of kind of like it's not LA, it's not New York. It feels to me like the north of England, where I spent a lot of time, where I went to art school and where the Mekons are originally based, and it's a place that has a sort of what you call blue collar pride,
Yeah,
and there's something going on here it's very supportive. This town was very supportive of artists. When I got here, I had no idea what I was going to do. I didn't know how I'd work. I knew I liked it here because I had a lot of friends here. And it was the one place when we were on tour we would stop and stay with friends rather than being in hotels.
Okay.
And to me, it was kind of amazing. It was I kept getting offered things and encouraged to do what I wanted to do, the things that I thought were interesting. I don't think those were not the things that I could have made a living at or would have been encouraged to do if I was in Britain. The punk rock scene and the rock scene in Britain was kind of cutthroat. Your flavor of the month, 1 minute everyone loves you, the next minute you're rubbish, go away,
right,
and you can't get a gig. And it just seemed in the States it was very tolerant. Companies like Bloodshot started. Mekons were with Touch and Go. The journalists here seemed to kind of know about the history of what I've been doing and were excited that I'd moved to town when I thought, no one would pay any attention. So it was just a lot of things. Meeting Tony Fitzpatrick, having his art career kind of kick-started by someone else who just liked my work. There was a sort of selflessness. I figured that in other places, it's like a lot of people trying to crawl over each other to get to the top. And here it felt like the natural default setting was to collaborate and help other people. So that's been my Chicago experience.
Do you ever make it out to Deerfield, suburbs?
Deerfield? I've been to Deerfield.
That's where my brother lives, in Deerfield, yeah.
Really? I've been out to Deerfield.
Yeah, there you go.
Where is that? So is that sort of north?
I don't know. It took me a while just to remember the name of the town. I don't know. That's the best I can do geographically speaking. I'm sorry. I think
there's
we should.
Lots of suburbs.
Well, I think we should play a song from the new album, "The Emperor's." I'll try to get that out. "The Emperor's Fiddle." Do you want to tell us intro this a bit, or should we just play the track here and you can tell us?
I will say this is the one people picked up on in England.
Okay.
Mark Riley on Radio 6 played this a few times and then we had to learn it. So,
All right. Well, we're going to play
one
it.
that jumped out to me, but playing it live, it's become like a real favorite of mine. So, yeah, sure. I really think Tamane Garami's fiddle work on it is exceptional.
Well, we're going to play it now, and if you need a primer yourself, you've got to play this in the next day or two, well, you can listen with us right now and refresh your memory. Here you go.
First time she raises her eyes, she does not smile. Somebody off in the distance is playing the fiddle like Nero. Then she began to chant and talk into the dead, words that rise and fall, floating right over our heads. We have more guns and disease than we can ever use. There is no honest trade. Let this be a warning to you. Sleep with your eyes wide open. Don't ever look behind. Mind your step in the dark. Don't get too close to the fire.
That's lovely.
Wow.
That's lovely. What was the inspiration for that particular track?
I don't know. It was like a kind of It's like a kind of, that's the sort of thing you want to hear in an interview, isn't it? That's an inarticulate start to a reply, if ever I heard one. I think it was like an answer to something. To the, it's about, I guess it's about history and the environment and things like that. And the way we kind of like refuse to ask the right questions till it's too late. And an acknowledgement of there might be more going on than we actually know what's going on. So
the album
I
is
don't know. There's lots of, I like to keep it all mysterious, so
it is
so
mysterious.
people know,
It's beautiful.
so people don't know how stupid I am.
Stop. No, the album as a whole is very melodic, very alluring. It's it's really lovely. The songs themselves are so complete and so refined. And some people, I don't know, some people that might just know you from the early days might be a little bit surprised at the tone of this particular album.
Yeah, I think that was my goal, is never to kind of, not to repeat or try and hone things, so there's a set sound,
Mm-hmm.
get rid of the things that people don't like and just polish up what, the classic Langford sound. There isn't one. So I love the end of that, because you got the acoustic guitar that John's playing a kind of line, and then Tammany's playing a fiddle line, and then that the brass sounds on the mellotron come in.
Yeah.
And I find it really, I wrote the words and the basic tune, but then they took that and made it into, it does evoke something that relates directly to the lyrics, and it's way beyond just what I intended, and it's really beautiful.
You've always had such remarkable collaborators throughout your career, and I'd like to ask you about one in particular, Miss Sally Timms. Are you still in contact with Sally at all?
Am I in contact with her?
Well, I mean,
Yes,
I've seen you perform, and I saw you performing with Sally Timms.
She came into my bedroom at 7:00 this morning and said, "There's a traffic warden outside, and you don't have a city sticker." So this is how close we are. I was.
Okay.
Her and her boyfriend were up having a cup of coffee, and they saw this deranged traffic warden coming down the street. It was figured to be having some kind of episode, but he was also taking photos of cars.
Well, that's
So
very
they woke
helpful.
me up, and I went immediately to a currency exchange and got a new city sticker.
That's so helpful. When you collaborate, you want people to go above and beyond.
Yeah.
And I think that's.
No, it's just funny. I was just thinking I would have been asleep.
Yeah, I think that's
Had it not
wonderful.
been for Sally.
Kudos.
Yeah, no, me and Sally been doing a lot. We travel a lot, and she lives in Chicago, so we do some stuff that's kind of like mini Mekons, we call it.
Yeah.
With John Szymanski from the Bright Shiners and her boyfriend Martin Bilheimer, who plays harmonica.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little group before. We're playing tonight, in fact.
Terrific.
In someone's backyard, just a friend's backyard, because we like playing. So
Yeah. That's terrific. It seems like you never are short on opportunities to play and people to perform with. It seems like, again, this kinetic energy of yours just keeps you moving and trying different things and, going into different projects. And the fact that you don't even know how many albums you have, I think that's proof of it right there. I thought.
Well, I don't know. We look at lists of songs, and how many of these songs could I actually sit down and play off the top of my head?
Well,
probably like 10% of them.
Well, how many songs do you have readied for your live repertoire? How many songs can you choose from on any given?
Oh, for playing live,
yeah,
quite a lot. Which is quite amazing, actually. We did a gig last night, and I just kept thinking of things. Just me and John have been playing together since 2016, so we just kept thinking of different songs we could actually do, and it's fun,
Yeah, well, you obviously have a very extensive catalog, a very large repertoire to choose
Yeah, well,
from.
John's been filling in for the with the Waco brothers, playing bass or playing guitar sometimes
Mm-hmm.
when different members couldn't make gigs. So he knows all that. He knows all my solo stuff. We have another project called the Fancy Men, which he knows, and we have this mini Mekons thing. He knows all that. So between the two of us, we could play. We have a lot of shit we can play.
Yeah, and again, I keep saying it, but you're always active. You're always moving into different realms and with different bands. And what do you do for relaxation, Mr. Langford? What do you do when you just want to put yourself out into the zone and not think about anything?
That's a very good question.
Thank you.
Somebody
I
asked me the
try
other
in
day
at least every
somebody asked me
interview to
the
come
other
up
day.
with one. Yeah.
That's what they say on NPR. I was going to try it. They always go, "That's a really good question."
Yeah, right.
But in fact, it is a really good question because I don't know the answer.
Wow, I've stumped you.
Yeah, I like to. At the moment, I kind of sit on my friend Martin's front step with him, and he smokes and I don't, and
Yeah.
we kind of watch the world go by and talk rubbish to each other, and make up new projects that we're never going to do.
Well, I would imagine.
Sounds like me and Lee.
But yeah, that's right. Frustrating. But I would imagine, though, even in doing that, in a sense, you're still working because there's probably your muse is coming to you and intruding on you and inspiring you to think, well, I could write a song about that, or let's try this. So, I mean,
I do like songwriting as a kind of immediate and fast way of doing something creative. Like I said, I've been hanging out with Martin a lot now, and he's a writer, and he writes. He's kind of writing essays. He's got a book, and and an essay is like can be as long as what you want it to be. I tried to write a short story once. It nearly killed me because they said it had to be a certain number of words, and it was like, wow. It was like I've told the story, and it was just a lot. It was a very hard process, and I love painting. Can be a big process as well, but I love a song. It's a little bit of a tune, a couple of words can come into your head, and you can just sketch it down. I just record things on my phone as fast as I can, and then it's kind of wonderful. And that was my solution to the pandemic, was to I didn't get much painting done. I didn't feel that I knew what I wanted to do, and I wasn't touring and I wasn't playing much, and maybe it was the time to sit down and write a novel or something, but I didn't have the energy or the bandwidth, and it was just, songs were great. I kept writing. I've got a big pile of songs that I haven't even gone back to yet.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how many you have.
Some of them might be good, but there's a lot of unreleased stuff that might be good. I just don't know.
All right. So you know what you need to do with everything you've recorded, everything you have yet to record. Maybe we need a John Langford anthology. I know you put out a greatest hits collection or something to that effect, but maybe we need a multi-disc.
I never have, actually.
I thought you never have. Okay, I thought you. My mistake.
Not with the solo stuff. The Mekons did a thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, I found that really unsatisfactory because it was just like taking songs that were comfortable in a context of an album and then sticking them up against each other in weird ways.
Yeah,
I didn't like that. I like the way we work is each project has is almost like a whole, and taking things and putting them somewhere else just seemed weird to me. So.
Well, I understand that entirely, but again, you have such a rich catalog and such a, all of this music that you've put out. Maybe it's time for some sort of compendium to catch those that are unknowing, to catch them up, to say, this is kind of what I've done, and this is a primer, and I think for the fans as well, they would love to hear the unreleased stuff. we all.
I'm going to see if anyone's interested.
Oh, I'm telling you, people are interested, and I'll write the liner notes. Okay, you got a double deal.
Thank you. You got a deal there.
I would love it. I would love it. But even if you just compiled some of the unreleased material, some live material, some B-sides or something to that effect, I think it would make a fascinating album. That would give even more depth into your talents and how you work. I don't know. I like the anthology idea personally. So
yeah, no, you know what? It's a thought. It's just this. Like I said, that there's such a trail of stuff behind, and people are very interested in re-releasing stuff at the moment. We're doing a deal with the Mekons with Fire Records in London.
Oh, really?
We've got a new album out, and they're doing some of the back catalogue. It's a lot of work.
Well, will there be unreleased material on those releases?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Well, not the new album. Yeah, it's all unreleased material. But there's some demos and stuff. We're going to do something with the Mekon Sin period. That's the idea. So.
Wow. When is that supposed to happen?
Next year.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously, you don't want to step on the new album here. You want to give the new album time.
Yeah,
to
the new album's coming out
flourish.
I think the new album comes out in March. So.
Yeah. Well, the Bright Shiners album, which is out now, should occupy folks with the present and what you're doing now. So.
Yeah, I hope people listen to it because it's. I always find people feel that. I don't know. Maybe it's just my imagination, but I think when I do something a solo thing, it's just this kind of like thing I knocked off, and then the Mekons is like the real project. But they're all, to me in my head, they're all equal. They're all of equal weight, and the amount
exactly
of effort and craft and lunacy that goes into them is equal in every case. So.
And they all capture a period in time and. Right. I mean, you've had so many wonderful projects here and so many super efforts, and it's just part of a magnificent catalog and a great legacy, Mr. Langford. And as a fan and speaking for other fans, of which there are many, thank you for giving us this treasure trove of music throughout the years. It's tremendous. It's just tremendous. What a legacy.
Well, play some more music, and people won't have to hear me droning on.
Well, I think Billy is telling me here that we have to sign off. He has a very formal sign off because he is a professional. Okay.
And John, how can let's see, how can folks find you on the internet there?
Oh yes, how can they find you?
People find me on the internet. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I think it's John Langford Official on Instagram. We usually put up a load of stuff about where we're playing and what's going on up there.
Yeah.
But the visual art is yarddog.com. And Yard Dog is the gallery in Austin that I've been showing up for 25 years, who are
excellent,
very close, my close friends. So
excellent.
They look after me very well.
Excellent.
Yeah. Oh, cool. All right, man. Well, we appreciate you, and we'll do a little outro here. We got to sign off.
Hey, it's great talking to you. Thank you so much, and I'm glad you like the Bright Shiners record.
Lovely.
Yeah. Big thanks to John Langford. Wow, good stuff there. And our host, Lee Zimmerman. Check out Lee's new book, 30 Years Behind the Glass, about Jim Gaines, the great engineer. Now available on Amazon. Also, please like, share, and subscribe to my Backstage Pass on your favorite platform. And we'll see y'all next time. Happy trails.
Happy trails.
Happy trails.